Batman the Night, issue 6. Chip Zdarsky writing with Carmine DJ Domenico on the art. So this is the issue that kind of addresses the guns. Obviously, Bruce has a very strong opinion on them. Him and Anton go to this guy Luca in Canada to train, and this guy's like hunting deer. He's got a bow and arrow. And he doesn't want to train them. He's given up using firearms. He's kind of regrets his life as an assassin. But they convince him by saying, we don't want to kill anyone. We want to stop killers. We want to understand them and know how they do things and be better than them so that we can stop them. And that's what convinces them. So we get a lot of training, showing what Anton's good at, what Bruce is good at. Bruce is good at hitting the moving target with the bird, kind of thing. So really well.
Yeah.
So well sequenced. Scene basically.
Yeah, it's very cinematic in that way, where it feels like a storyboard. But I do like that Bruce talks about, when he shoots that duck down, and the marksman's like, "Okay, no, you guys are different." And Bruce is like, "Yeah, well, I trained with the Mongolian horsemen. It's not my first time with a bow, and I learned to read nature." And that's what kind of wins them over to Luca. It was Bruce being like, we're here to actually learn, which I do like, because it does show the difference, especially by the end, between Anton, which we already kind of knew he had, dark motives.
Oh yeah, I mean, by the end of the issue, like they completely break down as far as the charade of his intentions. As it's going, Luca tells this story of like the mission that made him quit. Where he had to kill this guy, but his family weren't supposed to be there. But when they were there, because there was all these other targets and other hitmen get after them, he couldn't let the family live, so he had to kill the wife and son. And this obviously, like, Bruce reacts to this because it's so tied to like his past. But this is one of these things where, like, obviously we often bring up that we hate them regurgitating certain things in Batman. When he brings up the alleyway, he brings up the night his parents died. Obviously here it's completely justified, because one, we're doing an early story where he's training, but this specifically where he's training to use guns so he can understand them, so he can disarm people, so he can understand how to manipulate them and deal with them. Him talking about what he feels when he's using the gun makes sense. It doesn't, like, it would be weird if they didn't talk about this. It'd be weird if they didn't talk about how he feels firing a gun, even just at a target in the woods. It would feel disingenuous not to do it here.
It makes me very excited to see what Zdarsky's going to do with a fully formed Bruce as Batman. Because if he's doing this and it's not like we're engaged in hearing the story and why Bruce doesn't want to use a gun, it makes him uncomfortable, even though he's good at it. It hurts him in his soul to even hold one.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the moments I like.
That is masterful.
When he's talking about, or in his narration, when he's talking about doing this and reaffirming why he's doing it, like, I can't ever be this because, I'm too good at it. Like, he talks about how, like, he hates that he's good at firing the gun. Like, it's really getting into some of the nitty gritty of like Bruce's rules and his psychology and all that stuff. But of course, the big thing that sets all this tumbling down is that they go out and they kill a deer for dinner, and when they bring the deer back, Anton is the one who took the shot. Luca notices, you shot him in the neck rather than the head. It's not quick and painless this way, and you didn't even hit the spine. This is dangerous, and he very quickly brings up his gun and points at Anton and says, "You're a killer. You're a liar. You have a thirst for this. You're different." Basically says you're Dexter, right? You're a serial killer, and Anton later, when he's talking to Bruce about this, he kind of reiterates this idea that he only wants to stop criminals because it's more challenging than just being a criminal. It's more challenging to kill the killers than it is to kill innocent people.
It's very Dexter-esque, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's the serial killer of serial killers. Just the whole idea too, like, this guy, because he took lives, holds life sacred. So even though he hunts these deers, right, It's like this is a sacrifice for nourishment, and he's going to try to treat the animal, even though he's taking its life, with respect. And the fact that Anton just shot it wherever, just shows that he has zero respect for life.
I mean, you say wherever. I would argue that he maybe intentionally did something that was more painful. Yeah.
Right. That did make it worse. Again, that's a masterful storytelling piece.
I think my favorite part about this, because obviously Bruce eventually holds his gun up to Luca because he doesn't believe what he's saying. He's saying, no, Anton's good. He's a bit harsher than me, but he's good. Yeah. I think what I liked about this is the idea that this ties into like the future and how Bruce like views a lot of his rogues gallery, and that he's not necessarily the best at dealing with someone who is just completely like, the fact that he couldn't recognize what Anton was. And when you think about in the future how he's going to react the first time he encounters the Joker, or the first time he encounters some of these like villains that he has, to me this was like a harsh lesson of, you have to look for the signs, you have to see it in people. And and in some ways, I think this is the best issue of this book, because I really felt like all the things that this is like kind of like connecting to in like modern day fully formed Batman.
And it makes sense in that too, that it shows like he does hesitate a little too much, and that's why we've had so many rogues galleries of Batman turn around and become good for a short time, right? Because Batman does hesitate and isn't, the Punisher, and doesn't just take them out. So we get Clayface being able to be rehabilitated, Two-Face, Ivy, Harley. It's really just Joker that really hasn't, and that's because he's, the primary antagonist for Batman. But yeah, no, it is. I didn't even think of that when I was reading this, about this plays off into the future of him hesitating, and why they're able to get him Arkham so many times, right?
And it's not even necessarily the idea, because I think hesitation's almost a bad word here, because it implies that it's a mistake, and it is in this sense to the extent that he shoots Luca in the arm, and he's not happy about it, right? Yeah. He's not thrilled that he's had to do that. But then obviously it all goes bad, because then Anton kills Luca, and this is like a heartbreaking moment for Bruce, because this is like, you just killed this man in cold blood. This is awful. And Anton doesn't kill Bruce because it's too easy, because he's already won the fight, because he's all about the challenge. But like, this idea that in the future, like there is good to come from Bruce trying to rehabilitate people, because even Luca here was going to kill Anton just to take him out of the world, and obviously it's a fairly noble choice in the sense that he's doing this because he thinks, no, this man's a killer, we can't let him exist, he's going to do too many bad things, especially with the skills that I've taught him, so he can't be let out into the world. And this is kind of the again, that debate that always comes up with Batman and how he deals with these villains. Like, should he not just kill the Joker? And the answer is no, because him having that moral line's one of the things that makes Batman so interesting. So this idea here that Anton's not killed, but then is allowed to do something really nasty afterwards because Bruce didn't like take it seriously, and this is the consequence for him not recognizing what Anton was. This lesson is so important for what he's going to encounter for the rest of his career. Like, this was all really great stuff. So.
Well, and as they're fighting afterwards, and he says, we're learning art, Bruce, right? And he says, and Luca was a master painter who threw his brushes away. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, his view of the world is super dark, and it is a lesson for Bruce here. But yeah, no, this was excellent. And again, I really look forward to see what Chip's going to do on the main Bat book. If it's half as good as this origin story style, of him learning these different skills and lessons, I think we're going to be in for a good Batman run. It shouldn't come as a surprise, because we knew Chip was a decent writer, right, from Daredevil.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, the book started off kind of weird, and there's definitely been some issues that have...
That first issue, really, I didn't want to keep going, but I feel like as it builds, it's gotten better with each one. So I feel like I say that this issue was the best or my favorite. But
because I wasn't necessarily in love with the idea of this Anton character like coming with them, because you could almost say this is like Ghostmaker or someone.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
And I don't
adjacent.
think it is, but yeah, it's definitely adjacent. It's definitely,
I mean,
we know.
you could definitely see how it feels similar, but I think this issue justified his existence, because this entire standoff and this clash and Bruce not recognizing and everything, you know, how that links to the villains of the future, all completely made it work for me. Like, it all just kind of clicked together. I'm like, okay, there was a purpose to this, there was a point, and it all made sense.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the title of the knight, right? As a knight is not just a warrior, right? It's a warrior that believes in something. And we're discovering what Bruce believes in versus what Anton doesn't believe in. So they're almost on opposite ends of the spectrum. Yet they're both knights.
Yeah.
So
I guess the question at this point is Anton a character that's going to be gone by the end of this story, or is it a character that Zdarsky wants to have show up in the present day book?
could be. I definitely feel, knowing that Roz is coming from the solicits, right? Like, he's on the cover of one of the issues. I definitely feel like this dude ties to the League. Just from what we saw when they were training up in the mountains, you know, before they left on this, before they did the spy training. I definitely feel like this guy has ties to the League at some point.
I think my preference would be that he's done by the end of this story, just because I don't necessarily need another character from Bruce's like training days
to pop up,
showing up. Even though this one inherently is better seeded because we started with the past and we're sort of fleshed out into a big story. But I still think my preference would be that he somehow ends up dead by the end of this series. But we'll see.
Yeah, and he could reference him, you know, in something where he doesn't show up, but you know, I don't know. I don't really have a preference, because I'd like to see how they handle it, you know. But yeah, no, this is a whole lot of fun. I really like this, and this story definitely hit, especially in today's society. You know, talking about, you know, having that power in your hand and choosing not to use it, or you know, using it correctly, and valuing life, understanding your power, and how some people just wield it around without a care in the world, you know. So yeah, no, Zdarsky, and then Giandomenico's art is just spot on. Like you said, the scene where Bruce shoots the duck down, the fight at the end is very kinetic, you know, following through the panels and whatnot. Like, it's just an all around good book.
Yeah. The final fight leaves Bruce alone. Anton just leaves him there. He doesn't want to kill him because it'd be too easy, and Bruce is just sitting feeling alone and Batman-y.
In the shadow of a bat.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward. What are we giving Batman the Night?
Maybe that's an 8.5.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that for this issue. Probably the best issue of the book.